Hello, this is Dr. Freedom. Please don't forget to subscribe and give us a thumbs up. Also, don't forget to click on the little bell icon. That way you'll be notified when the latest news videos go up. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Omega Files. I'm your host, Dr. Freedom, and tonight we'll be discussing a very interesting show that's bounced into the public eye over the last couple of years. And no, it's not that thing that's on the CBS All Access Network. We're talking about the Orville, which has caught everybody by surprise by being not only very comedic, but it has also taken some very serious turns as it continues on, in its journey. Okay, when I go around, I'm going to call your name. Go ahead and tell me what your opening thoughts are on the Orville, what you think about it and all that. We're going to start at the top this time, so we're going to start with AJ. Go on ahead about the Orville.
Hi there, guys. I'm not a massive Star Trek fan, and people compare this show to Star Trek, and to me that means really not much at all. But I heard the name Seth MacFarlane, sci-fi, bit of comedy, so I thought, yeah, give it a go. The wife and I watched it first season. Loved it. Second season, just as great. People are worried about, nowadays TV shows need to have a message behind it, something about the way the world is nowadays. This show does that, but it has a very good story attached to that message. One episode where one of the characters gets addicted to cigarettes and, smoking's bad and so forth. So in a way, they got the message, but it's not slammed in your face like, this is what you should listen to. It's a good story. I love the comedic timing with Seth MacFarlane and series acting. So this show can only go up unless they cancel it for some stupid reason, which hopefully they don't.
Okay, as of today, I just saw this over on the, what's the name of that site again? All right, that was on Deadline. All right, let's bring this up really quick. This is dated today. It is now official. The Orville will return for a third season on Fox. So it's no longer, speculation. It's no longer an unconfirmed rumor. It is now official. Yes, they have been confirmed for Series 3. Okay, so let's get back to you guys. All right, DWC, you go ahead next.
Certainly this is an absolute true Star Trek series, and I'm actually not doing that to bash the STD. I think it really does uphold to Star Trek in a way no other science fiction but has tried to emulate Star Trek has done before. There was actually a series, I can't remember, not Red Dwarf, but there was a British space series starring Nick Frost that was called The New Star Trek, but it's nothing compared to the Orville. The Orville has all the elements of Star Trek. It has similar kind of characters to Star Trek, and like AJ was talking about, messages to Star Trek. It somehow emulates all that feeling. Each episode even ends like Star Trek, which is a really hard thing to define. But if you watch Star Trek, you see how each episode ends. You watch the Orville, see how each episode ends. It's very similar. Series 1 was great. Series 2, interestingly enough, Series 2 had two of the things I wanted to see. I wanted to see the planet Solea because I wanted to see the idea of what the crew would be like on a impacted gravity like that, and I wanted to see Kalon because, well, I wanted to know more about Isaac's people, and boy, did we have that one in spades. I was not expecting that. And other things in which it kind of improved or changed in a way was Moclan Society. We saw a bit of Moclan Society before and their attitudes towards women, and now we have it again and learn, oh, wow, there are actually a lot more women on Moclus than they say. But interestingly, that we talked about, AJ was talking about messages before, again, how they handle this kind of allegory of messaging is really impressive because this has all involved, both things involving the Moclans have involved some sort of tribunals or inquiries in some way. It's amazing how they can have that message and actually have it balanced in a way that people say you don't really get anymore. But more than just simply balance, they don't even take the easy way out. You'd think that the easy way out would be to say, oh yes, Moclans should be female, or the Moclans should be able to return happily, but they don't do that. and even more to the point, something that Star Trek hasn't done, or to a large extent, where possible corruption within the Federation, they've actually shown somewhat corruption or compliance within the Union, how they were so happy to let the Mocklins get away with things just for weapons, which is kind of fascinating. And all around a great series, great way they've gone direction. Where I'd like to go for Series 3, there's only one thing I'm really interested in Series 3, and that's actually the relationship between Bortus and Clyden. That relationship is slowly starting to break apart, and I'm wondering, is Bortus going to divorce Clyden? And we all know how Mocklins divorce each other.
It doesn't end well. Okay, Beefhead.
I've always enjoyed the stuff of Seth MacFarlane. I've always enjoyed the movies, Ted, or A Million Ways to Die in the West, Family Guy, American Dad. So when this was announced, I was excited, to be honest with you, because I thought, it's just going to be out-and-out comedy. And I was very, very, very surprised that it was science fiction done right. Like the guys have said it's stories with a message and a point to them, but it's not hammered home. It's done by allegory and parable, and it's basically the closest thing that you would get to Star Trek. I was worried at the start that the humor was going to be too much, that it was just going to be too heavy and playing it for laughs. And I think it took a couple of episodes for me for it to find its feet. And I think after those first couple of ones, just to get people on board, I think they got away from that. And they did that in a good way, to be honest with you, because it added to the show. There's still elements of humour in it. I think Seth MacFarlane said in the Mark Maron podcast that he did, that he tried to make it more of a series about people who work in space. So that's the idea of the character interactions between them and everything like that. And the show has really, for me, gone from strength to strength. It's really taken a definite upswing with this second series. The twist that you get with one of the characters partway through the second series just came from left field, and you didn't see that coming. And it was a real, my God, what WTF moment. So I've got to say, it touches on a lot of sensitive issues, things that are still current, that they did exceedingly well, I think, in the classic series. And certainly it's closer, I think, to Next Generation in the way that it's handled. But you do form an attachment to the characters, I think, which is something that's really well done. And if you're doing science fiction in a good way, then you can find an identifiable character, a relatable character. You can see something of yourself in those characters. And that's what it is. It's not played just for laughs. The supporting cast that they've got is really solid. You've got Seth MacFarlane's band, the usual people who he works with, Scott Grimes, but they've also pulled in really big cameos as well from people like Rob Lowe. And as it's progressed, certainly into the second series, you've been bringing on people from the world of Star Trek. So you've had Robert Picardo, you've had Jonathan Frakes come in and direct, I think, an episode of this along the way. So it has sort of been gaining this more and more credibility the more people are getting switched onto it. So it is science fiction done right, acted well, written well, thought-provoking, and it's something that you can become invested in. So it's definitely one to watch for the future.
All righty. Okay, let's go on over to William.
I was totally anticipating, like Beef said, a comedy science fiction show, in which in the beginning of the first season, it came out like that. But after, like, say, the third or fourth episode, it started being more Star Trek. What you could say, whether it's the original or the Next Generation, it depends on your point of view. But it really picked up real better. I mean, you got to give credit, because I actually was thinking that it was going to be a one-season show, considering how much money each episode costs. But luckily, we found out earlier this week that they are given a tax credit to film some episodes like in LA like that, especially for the next season, which is like you just announced it got picked up for. So that's good for them. And luckily in the second season, it got the comedy was only used in certain scenes or to break up, say, a serious situation that's been going on for a while, which worked real well, especially like with the war that happened in the middle of the season, which I was not anticipating anything like that at all. I gotta give kudos for that. I mean, I was just thinking that the first or second season would just be building up certain characters, their backgrounds, especially when one left in the second season and a new one came in. So that's why I thought all I was anticipating was seeing a battle start up in the second season like that. I can't wait for the new season. Now, I know a lot of people are griping are saying that a lot of people like it more than the CBS All Access show. That I think that's opinion between whoever it is. But you got to give one thing though: the Orville is making more money in advertisement than the other show. So since it's only in the All Access program, and that's why right now he has a tax credit for next season. You got to give credit for McFarlane for coming up with this thing, and the way he used certain music that we listen to in some of these episodes. You got to give props for that. I mean, especially when he used Billy Joe, that was a great episode right there. That was a great one. And then of course, there's certain individual stories that stands out about a girl, and I actually thought the child was going to remain a girl, and it turned out no. And that was great because you can't change nothing. You can't change a society just like that on a drop of a dime. It takes time. Now, whether they will ever change, we want to find out. Let's go to next season and so on to find that out. And of course, the war. I can't wait to see more of that. And of course, the spy that McFarlane's character had a romantic interest in, and she turned out to be a spy. I can't wait to see her come back again. See what happens with that. I mean, this show really got me so hooked up. I anticipate it when it airs. I'm right there when I see it. And I can't, and I'll rewatch it again just in case I missed something, which I haven't a bunch of times because you got to really watch certain things when the ways people speak to each other or a situation that happens. You got to watch it again and notice how it goes with that story. So you got to give credit. There hasn't been that many shows that I've been looking forward to seeing every week in quite a while. So you got to give props for this.
I know they recently did that storyline where they had the alternate timeline. And when you see the alternate timeline, it reminded me a lot of like Renegades, which was an online fan, like movie production. Well, it was going to be a series until, Paramount dropped the hammer with the quote unquote regulations. And then also the a little bit of Firefly, a little bit of that here and there. So it's kind of like it's a good all-round series. Plus the storytelling is amazing. Like you brought up with the storyline that took place on Mocklin, where their society is based on the male culture, and having a female child and all that is pretty much a taboo. And then everybody, you're expecting the happy ending as you brought up, and then it turns out no. At the end, they choose to have the child surgically altered to become male to fit in, and it's like, okay, you realize there's you're not, like you said, they're not going to change overnight. Plus, we've brought in this whole new enemy with the Kalons, turning out, they weren't just interested in becoming part of the Union. They were actually trying to find out the weaknesses of the Union. That's why they sent Isaac there to study them, make them easier to conquer. And plus, the reveal when they went to Kalon, that right there was a kick in the head, when that kid goes down that tube and then there's all these bones stacked everywhere because they're the guys who created the Kalons and they wiped them out. It's like kind of a little bit of Terminator action going on there as well. But the fact of the matter is the storytelling is way above board. It's incredible writing. Plus, as Beef brought up, we've had a lot of familiar faces showing up on the show, such as, Marina Sirtis, Robert Picardo, and things like that. Frakes directing. Plus, the show is executive produced by Brandon Braga, who was one of the guys, if I'm going off memory here, but I believe he was behind DS9 and Voyager and stuff like that. So he's on board behind the scenes. But the part that really stumps me is a lot of people don't know this, is that Seth MacFarlane, when he came up with this idea, he wanted it to be a Star Trek series. He took it to Paramount. Paramount rejected him. So he took the idea, they morphed it a little bit, took it over to Fox. Fox picked it up, and guess what? It's kicking butt. People are enjoying this. And also, William brought up about the music. When you're listening to the score, even, not just the regular songs, the song, the soundtrack on this would be amazing, if they ever put one out. But the actual musical score, when you're sitting there listening to the background music, the way it's done and all that, it reminds you a ton of the music you used to hear for Star Trek, DS9, and all the new series. It's just puts you right into that mood. And it's just an incredible thing all around. Okay, let's go around. Let's talk about, there's a lot of characters on the Orville, but which ones do you guys like? Whoever wants to hop on it first. What's your favorite characters in this?
Well, I gotta say, what started with the thing is, I consider every one of them a favorite of mine. Every character, but they're all different. They're all different. You got the captain who had a failed marriage, and his ex-wife who was his number one, and thanks to her, he finally got a ship. And of course, they still remain friends. And then that's a good story. That's a good right there with them. So that's two captains that stood out. Of course, you got Borders, who's married to a male. And what's funny, their situation is so unusual. There's certain scenes that you don't anticipate, like them getting addicted to smoking, and of course, Borders in the hologram, almost like addicted to watching porn like that. It's funny, but it's just a funny situation. And of course, both of them dancing in a disco club like that. It just certain scenes that stood out right there with them. And the way I hope his wife does. Or husband, excuse me, does do something outside of just staying at home, just do a hobby, something like that for his character to get built up like that. And of course, then you got this girl who had this planet, gravity was different. And then she left, and she was a great character, and then a new one come in, and you don't know that much new one yet. And it was nice to see the old one in the final story arc with the alternate timeline. So it was nice to see her like that. Then you got the two, you say the two friends that always get into committed situations. The one who knows the good friend of the captain, and then the other one is engineering, but he got promoted later on in the first season, to engineering, because he's so smart like that. All these characters, I can't choose a favorite, but they're all so different. Then you got Isaac, of course, that you said that he was a spy like that for his planet, and then he has a you can say he has a romantic liaison with the doctor like that, which is something he never anticipated that was going to happen. So that was pretty nice as that happened. Every character there is so different, but that's why they stand out. They're all different in you, and even though some of them are only there maybe for a little while, it depends on the story all like that. It's great to see them like that. So they're all my favorites. There's none that I don't like. They all stand out. Even the engineering crew, and all of them are funny. They're like that. So they all stand out. There's nothing I don't like about none of them. That's what
I'm glad you mentioned the doctor, because I forgot to mention, that she's the actress who played Cassidy Yates in DS9.
Yep.
Yeah. So she's another one who's hopped on board, and she's a regular. And But like I said, my favorite, like I said, comedic-wise, I'd have to say Yaphet. I'm sorry. Voiced by Norm Macdonald. That character is just so outside of the norm, because he's CGI, which is something they couldn't easily do back in the day. And, something they didn't do on Next Gen or anything like that. And, just the fact he's this little gelatinous blob who's running around, he's got this love interest with the doctor. He's kind of like going, Tormund, Brienne to Tar thing, for her. And it never quite works out, of course, because she's not interested in him. But, of course, there was a situation where things got a little weird. And that's what I love about the show is, while it does deal with serious issues, it also has, the comedy that helps you, it helps ease the tension a bit. But then you get into some situations where, oh my God, damn. Okay, anyone else?
I think to be able to do something like this, you have to love the original source material, so you can see it where you've got the culture clash of, like you would have with Worf, you have with Bortis. So that makes him a perfect straight man, because he's just a complete blank slate. So you can make him do anything, and it's going to be funny. you can really, basically relate everyone to a character in their counterpart in Star Trek, which is how clever it is. One of the characters I like that I think is it's just like one of these occasional ones that turn up every so often. And I can't remember his name, but he always shows up in the lift and goes, we should get some music in here or something like that. It's the guy with the big balloon head, because he's sort of like just that guy who's just like always feels awkward, doesn't like the silence, because you would have people who would just be regular red shirts or extras just standing there and seeing this sort of like, hey, this is nice. So it's just, and it's the awkward small talk of people on a ship who, you wouldn't necessarily associate with you, but you just have to be nice with. And I like him. He's probably my favourite recurring character.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I suppose my favourite is more Isaac than anything, because of his. Obviously, he is the allegory of Data, and when I was a child, my mother loved Data because she said he reminded her of me, and weirdly, I saw a lot of me in that with Isaac. But, again, it's because of my autism and everything, and. The episode of Isaac where Isaac and the Doctor ended up going out, essentially. Weirdly, I understood Isaac and I related to Isaac in absolutely every single way. Everything he was doing to initially looked at Finn's profile and everything because he felt that was more efficient. I thought, yeah, that seems much more efficient. That makes so much sense. I'd rather go with that. I will, before going on, just a little tiny thing. Someone pointed out, William actually, about Bortus having porn addiction. This is just a more simple thing with me. That's not real. That's not medically, that's not a real thing. Just wanted to say that. Rather annoyed that they actually included that as a storyline.
Tell Terry Crew.
Okay, I just checked. It's Dan is the guy who keeps popping up in the elevators, played by Mike Henry, who's another familiar from Family Guy and whatnot. Yeah, he's that guy who keeps popping up everywhere, the big bulb head.
I am actually glad they do give him some lines, but because there's a lot of times in shows like this, or even in the current CBS show, there's actually this actress who's literally got all this prosthetic makeup and android stuff, and all she had to do was just stand there for the first season, and she had a lot more in the second season. But I'm glad they give Dan some lines, because I always feel really bad about actors who have to have all that stuff done to them and just have one shot of them.
And something else I didn't know is the voice of the computer is Rachel McFarlane, Seth MacFarlane's sister, who's also been on Family Guy a few times here and there. So I just think, one of the funniest things I see is when the executive producer credit, one of the producers who comes up is, what's her name from Family Guy? It's something Chevra Mop. Basically, the name is like that damn long. It takes up the whole screen.
Shavramutu or something, I think it is.
Yeah, something like that. It's like, okay, AJ.
For me, favorite character, I don't actually have one. I think it's a great ensemble cast. They bounce off each other really well, character-wise. It's like saying, who's your favorite Doctor? But I think the one character who appeared for a few episodes in mid-season and then just disappeared, the new security officer, the guy who had his nose that went into his stomach.
Oh,
he was hilarious. I just love that guy. He's sitting on the deck, and he's sitting there. He's eating his breakfast, and he just disappeared. No one knows what happened to him, which is a sad thing.
He was the interim security officer. It's Patrick Warburton who shows up in a lot of Seth MacFarlane stuff as well, because
he was always supposed to be temporary, I think. The idea of the character.
Yeah, but they didn't say what happened to him. He just disappeared like ephemera.
Yep, that was his esophagus. That's right, because he ate that one time, and you could see the food going down the tube into his stomach.
That's what's impressive with this show, though. Special effects are really well done. Even the CG stuff in space, it looks amazing. It looks almost like a big-budget Hollywood movie.
Yeah, because the big adversaries of for the first season were like the Krill. And they're always coming up against them. And then, of course, the Kaelon thing happened. So now things are kind of okay with the Krill. So, I think they're kind of meant to be like the Klingons of the old, Star Trek series and whatnot. But I just like the way things are evolving with this show. It's just, it started out pretty much more comedic than serious. Then it became, an even balance. And now they're leaning more towards the serious and the dramatic as they go along. And it's just really, really well timed and well done. And, the interactions with the crew, as everyone's brought up, different relationships, all well explored.
They've even done a very Star Trek thing, which I noticed at the beginning of this series. They did a thing where they'll probably take just a random line that was put in the previous series and actually make a whole thing about it in a particular episode. They had that whole throwaway joke in the first episode about Mocklins only peeing once a year. Then, what do you know? The very next series, they actually make a whole subplot around supporters finally peeing.
Yeah, they only pee once a year. Okay, Beef, go ahead.
I think that what makes it so hard, I think, for all of us as well to choose a favourite character is that there isn't a weak link. You can usually watch a show and say, do you know what, that person's not sort of fitting right, that person's not gelling right. But everyone is really smacking their A game. You've got to give massive kudos to Seth MacFarlane as well. So who's so heavily involved with the production of it and carries off the part of the commander or the captain with Ed Mercer as sort of humor and grace and everything like that. He still delivers some of the really good comic stuff, but it's, instead of it being slapstick, it's more dry comedy, so it comes from what it is. And I think that's why it's so hard to pick a favourite too. It just bangs on all points character-wise. Even the kids of the Doctor, because the Doctor, you would say Wesley Crusher was like, he was a weaker link in the earlier part, but even the Doctor's two boys actually play a valuable part with it. And like DWC is saying, there are callbacks to things that have happened earlier. So the situation with the gender of Bortus's child, you got from that, you then get a callback to that in the second series when you find out more about how their culture is and the knock-on effect that it has. There's no weak link to it. The supporting cast, you have people like Victor Gerber show up. You've had Ted Danson show up as Union fleet commanders, and even they're brilliant, to be honest with you. I'm trying to remember who it was who played the leader of the Mocklin female separatist group. She was quite a famous actress, but she was just like bang on point as well. There is real heart to it, and there's no weak link. That's why I think it's so hard for any of us to choose a favourite.
If only Seth MacFarlane, though, could get Charlize Theron to appear on a television show. Okay, AJ, go ahead.
For me, I think also, I don't know if this is right or not. Did they have a scientific advisor for the show?
I could have swore they did. I can't remember.
Sure,
Because I was really impressed in the last episode, I think it was, where they went into the black hole. The black hole, the way they showed it, is actually how it should have been. It's a three-dimensional object in space, not a flat disk that sits in the fabric of space, which they did that really well. It's like a black sun almost. But they did that well.
I'm about to say Isaac should be the scientific guy because of his knowledge.
No. I mean, like for the show,
real.
like behind the scenes.
Oh,
They had people on Doctor Who would tell them about certain scientific aspects and stuff like that.
I will say this though. I mean, that bit with the black hole where they're hiding in it. Yeah, it is true that time would move differently in a black hole, but if you were in the Event Horizon, you're pretty much dead. You can't just stay in there and then come out of it. That's complete bollocks.
Okay, I'm going to go through the list of guest stars just to give you an idea. All right. Rob Lowe, Brian George, Jeffrey Tambor, Holland Taylor, Jonathan Adams, Robert Knepper, Giorgio Wiggum, Liam Neeson, Charlize Theron, James Horan, Michaela McCannis, Stephen Culp, Brian Thompson, Ralph Garment, Robert Picardo, Molly Hagan, Candace King, John Billingsley, Jason Alexander, Patrick Warburton, Bruce Willis, by the way, was the flower, the Katrudian named Grugan. Yeah, and Tim Russ, by the way, who played Tuvok on Voyager. Leighton Mester, Marina Sirtis, F. Murray Abraham was the Planetary Union speaker.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, the Mocklin delegate, played by the ever-so-famous Tony Todd. So it's just amazing that this little show that everybody, you know, we kind of underestimated because we all thought, okay, it's going to be his typical comedy bit like he does in his other, you know, animated shows and whatnot, or his movie, you know, like, you know, Million Ways to Die in the West. But it has literally come out of nowhere and knocked us for a loop. It has just turned out to be more spectacular than we could have imagined. And I'm looking forward to seeing where they go in Series 3. You know, now that it's been officially renewed, it's officially confirmed now.
I can't wait to see how many other guest stars are going to appear now in the next season.
Yep. You know, where else, you know, are we going to see more of the Kalon threat? Are we going to, is that guy played by Rob Lowe going to show back up and make everyone go nuts again?
Personally, I just hope that like Next Generation, DS9, and Voyager, it gets 7 series. And then it would ultimately be like, just like those shows, more than ever.
Well, folks, if there isn't anything else that I haven't brought up, we'll go ahead and we'll bring this session to a close. Please, whatever you're doing out there tonight, be careful, enjoy the rest of your weekend, and join us next week as we talk about another little show that could, because let's just say there was a large number of people on this planet who are going out to their local hardware stores to buy chainsaws to pay visits to Fox television executive producers. And we're going to talk a bit about the death and rebirth of Lucifer. So please join us then, everyone. Take care. Have a good night.
See you. Enjoy your Mother's Day.